Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Throne of Steel episode number 194 based on novel. So let's start. Long Hao-Chen did not need to worry about these problems at all. He himself was a light god, and in a sense, his body could even be called a group of the purest light elements. How could it be eaten back by the domain of optical properties? The 7 colors gradually faded inside Long Hao-Chen, and he obviously had some difficulty, so that his body shook slightly. However, the 7 colors had never rebounded outward, which meant that Long Hao-Chen had a strong absolute control over his own domain. It was also a feature of mental strength. Finally, when the last 7 colors completely disappeared from the surface of his body, Long Hao-Chen's body gently shook, and his whole body felt like a rebirth. All of a sudden, he only felt that his strength was at least 10 times stronger, and the domain had completely become a part of his body, a part of his strength. It was not simply a kind of ability, the domain was him, he was the domain. Unwittingly, the golden swords in his hands turned into a more colorful gold like an artifact. Look, Long Hao-Chen had just opened his mouth, but he was directly interrupted by Xiao Hua. You still can't win. The golden eyes appeared again. This time it appeared faster than the previous 2 times. And when the golden eyes opened, Long Hao-Chen only felt a moment of tightness in front of his chest, and then his body hit the wall behind him again. At the same time the eternal armor gave a strong hum. The 3 rays around his body quickly gathered on his chest, it emitted a circle of soft glows and stabilized the waves of the eternal armor. What a terrifying attack! At that moment, Long Hao-Chen even felt as if the eternal armor was about to collapse. Of course, it was just a feeling. However, he had a complete understanding about the domain for me but still could not resist Xiao Hua's blow. This time, Long Hao-Chen was completely confused. Do you feel that when you reach a certain level of practice, your skills are no longer important? Xiao Hua said with a low voice. Long Hao-Chen got up from the ground, adjusting his body, and spurting a breath from his chest, which made him feel a little better. He nodded and answered, after entering the level 9, the power of the skill depends entirely on its own ability. Even a low-level skill can also exert great power. Xiao Hua shook his head and said, You are wrong. You'll think it this way now because you don't have really powerful skills. The really powerful skill is to mobilize one's own strength perfectly and break out a power that far exceeds one's own self-cultivation. All I can say is that the skills you have learned in the past are not really suitable for the top 9. What's more, it is not suitable for level 9 of rank 5 or above. But I can't blame you. After all, there are very few of us who can reach level 9 of rank 5. Long Hao-Chen's heart moved and said, Is that the kind of powerful skill you just exercised? Xiao Hua nodded slightly and said, The skill I just used is called the Eye of Brahma. It's the first of my Brahma Trinity. I am old. I have been groping for thousands of years. I feel the power of heaven and earth, and the secret meaning of heaven is created by itself. If you are interested, you might as well learn from me. If you can find another magic sword of the same quality as the Sword of Eternity on your back, then I believe my Brahma Trinity will be able to produce the most powerful combat effectiveness in your hands. After all, I am already an undead. In my hands, the 3 forms of Brahma can only be buried. In the end, his mood seemed a little bleak. However, the confidence in the 3 forms of Brahma could be clearly felt by every strong person there. Long Hao-Chen was overjoyed when he heard those words. He knelt down in front of Xiao Hua without hesitation, and said, Thank you so much for your help. He had personally felt the power of the Eye of Brahma, and no matter how he perceived it, he couldn't feel the essence of it. Unless it was with the Sword of Eternity to promote the 3 Swords of Eternity, it was possible to resist. However, the 3 Swords of Eternity were in a sense the skills of the sealed divine throne of eternity and creation and did not belong to Long Hao-Chen himself. The 3 forms of Brahma created by Xiao Hua were actually comparable to the 3 Swords of Eternity. Its power was evident. This was not only a simple skill, but also the so-called one-size-fits-all and all-in-one skills. With Long Hao-Chen's understanding, if he were to learn the 3 forms of Brahma, it would certainly have inestimable benefits to his future practice. Whether it was for the use of spiritual power or in the domain, it was bound to produce a qualitative leap. As for the other 2 divine swords, yes, his Sword of Eternity was of such high quality that it might not be able to find a second one in the whole human world. However, he still had Hao Yu. Hao Yu had evolved into a successful octave, and if it was transformed into a purple and golden Hao Yu sword for Long Hao-Chen, its quality would not be much different from that of the Sword of Eternity. Using these two magic swords to perform the three forms of Brahma, Long Houchen seemed to have seen the scene of a war between himself and the god of devils. Get up. Before I teach you the three forms of Brahma, you should also tell us why you are here this time, Xiao Hua said. Long Houchen said, because the god of devils found that I am still alive, he is likely to launch another holy war in a short time. This time the Devil's clan will do his best to come. The anti-heavenly dragon clan, the moon devil's clan and the star devil's clan will all join this holy war. The Union suffered a great loss of strength after the last holy war, and we are indeed inferior to the devils in terms of overall strength. Therefore, after discussion, we hope to invite our ancestors to come out. Hearing what he said, the eternal heroes there could not help but shine with wonder. Xu Yongxiao murmured, "We finally going to be used?" Long Houchen continued, "Please rest assured because we have discussed that we will correct the names of our ancestors in the Federation. We will let all the people of the Union know what you have done for the Union. The magic image works better than expected, which gives the Union more confidence to announce the deeds of eternal heroes." "No," Xiao Hua said calmly, "if we covered this name, we will not choose to become undead and sleep here silently for so long. Thousands of years later, can't we see through this? It's okay to go to war, but please don't declare our existence. We have our own ways to hide our identity." Indeed, dressed in golden armor, he exuded the aura of light. How could he be seen as the undead? As soon as Long Houchen was about to say something, Xu Yongxiao nodded and said, "Xiao is right. We don't care about earthly fame at all, but..." Xu Yongxiao only said those words and then she stopped and looked up and down at Long Houchen. The glow flew into the bloody eyes, no one knew what she was thinking. "But what?" "Please tell me," Long Houchen said hurriedly. Xu Yongxiao said, "Over the years, in order to survive longer, we have almost completely lost contact with the outside world, except to hear the news from your night temple once every few decades. This trip, I am afraid, will be our last. And for thousands of years, in addition to sleeping, each of us has gained more or less a few unique skills. I hope the Union can choose a group of excellent young people for us to pass on our skills. We do not need you to respect us, your teachers. But these young people are required to be savvy and honest. I don't care about others, at least they should be the same level as you." This is, Long Houchen mused for a moment and said with embarrassment, "The ancestors are willing to teach lessons, which is a good thing for the Alliance. I'm all for it. It's just that it may be difficult for you to find someone like me." Long Houchen was really not being arrogant. In terms of talent, who in the Temple Federation could compare with him? His innate spiritual power was as high as 120, which was the constitution of the God of Light. Xiao Hua smiled and said, "Son, you have been fooled. Yongxiao was clearly fond of little girlfriend you just mentioned. She said it quickly because she is afraid someone else will claim her. She is the first-generation master of the Assassin Temple." Long Houchen suddenly understood and he scratched his head and said, "Kia is sure to be all right. She will be very willing to learn from you." Xu Yongxiao turned and looked at the crowd of eternal heroes. "Did you hear that?" said Xu Yongxiao with a smile. "I do not care how talented the girl is. I've already made up my mind by her honest and integrate heart. Xiao Long, you can't favor one over the other." Another old voice sounded, and an old man took a few steps forward and said, "Xiao and Master Xu have robbed all the best. I'm not asking for much. Anyone from the Light Dawn Demon Hunter you're talking about is good enough." As soon as Long Houchen was about to say yes, the eternal heroes around him almost crowded around him, and the strong ancestors, who were incomparably quiet just now, were now more and more eager and talkative, and they all wanted to have a good student from the Light Dawn Demon Hunter groups. No wonder these eternal heroes were like this. They all knew that they would not exist in this world for long. If they could pass on the hard work of their whole life, they would still exist in the world in another form. And often a strong master was easier to find than a good apprentice. Long Houchen had just said that the 10 members in the Light Dawn Demon Hunter group were all in their early 30s, and the lower one was also the level 8 peak, 8 of which were all 9th level, and half of them were strong in the domain. Where else could they find such a genius? There was no one could compare with them all over the Temple Alliance. Xiao Hua immediately woke them up. The response of Xu Yongxiao was the fastest, and the reaction of others was also not slow. Although these eternal heroes were headed by Xiao Hua and Xu Yongxiao, when it came to finding inheriting disciples, they would not give way to each other. They not only surrounded Long Houchen in the middle, but their emotions got more and more excited, as if they were about to fight. "Everyone, please listen to me. Seeing that the situation was getting out of control, Long Houchen hurriedly said in a loud voice. At the same time, the eternal armor on his body emitted a layer of glowing white eternal light, which awakened every eternal hero in that strange psychic fluctuation. The eternal heroes, more than 60, quieted down for a while, but their eager eyes were all focused on Long Houchen. They were waiting for Long Houchen to give them an explanation. Long Houchen earnestly said, "I can understand your feelings. Everybody, don't worry. Maybe it's because we humans are about to fight against devils. In recent years, we do have many young talents. Please rest assured that I will find for you 100 hereditary disciples under the age of 40 who have the practice level more level 8. All of us in the Light Dawn Demon Hunter group will be among them. As for the final choice, I think it should depend on fate. We might as well let you all draw lots together. I will not tell you in advance their levels, but only group them separately according to their positions. The one who picked the right lot can choose a disciple he like. We will do it again and again until all of you have chosen one. What do you think of this?" These eternal heroes were all strong 9th level. With the exception of Xiaohua and Xu Yongxiao, other people's practice level was actually the same. They all knew that if they fought with each other, no one could convince the others. Long Houchen's proposal was also fair. The crowd nodded one after another, and this was the only way to solve the disturbance. Long Houchen added, "Since the ancestors agreed to go out with me, do you have any other things that you want? I'll prepare them for you. After all, these eternal heroes hadn't left here for thousands of years." Long Houchen didn't know whether they still could adapt to the outside world, or what they needed. That was why he asked. Xu Yongxiao said, "Don't worry, we are not that fragile. Just prepares a big cloak for us. That's enough. As for our identity, you say to the outside world, we are your bodyguards." Long Houchen said hurriedly, "What? That's not proper." Xiaohua raised his hand to interrupt him and said, "Let's put it this way. We have existed in the world for more than 6,000 years, and reputation is important, as long as we achieve our goal. However, thank you very much for your consideration and willingness to correct our name. As long as you can lead the Union to repel the devils completely in the future, and let humans rule the world again, we will be satisfied. That's all we ask. With you, we can finally see that our dream might come true." Long Houchen said, "I feel ashamed." Xiaohua smiled and said, "Don't be modest. If you were just as capable as you were when you confronted me just now, would you be able to become president of the Union? At the beginning, I have seen with my own eyes the power of sealed divine throne of eternity and creation. Even if it is your domain, it was carried out to the extreme. You go ahead and get ready. After we go out, I will stay with you for a while until you fully learn the 3 forms of Brahma." "Understood." Long Houchen respectfully agreed. Xu Yongxiao said, "Wait a minute, Xiao Long. You still need to be clear about the overall strength of our 63 old undead to arrange us in the war with the Devil's Clan. Xiao and I are both at level 9 of rank 7. Among the others, there are 16 people above level 9 of rank 5, and the others are all above level 9 of rank 3. Just to have a general idea about it." Long Houchen's heart was really shocked for a moment. 63 strong people with at least 9 level of rank 3 or above might not be able to make it out of the whole Temple Federation. What's more, there were 16 level 9 of rank 5 and 2 level 9 of rank 7, which could at least counteract the threat posed to human beings by the first race of the Devil's Clan, the anti-heavenly Dragon Clan. It could be said that, with the support of these eternal heroes, human beings not only had the strength to fight against the devils, but also at least increased their chances of winning by more than 20%. They left the cave and took back the Holy Mountain's order to the core legal array. As soon as he came out, Kia immediately woke up from the state of practice. Long Houchen had to face a group of 9th level strong people, and no wonder she could not concentrate on her practice. She actually didn't get into the contemplation state at all, and seeing Long Houchen's returned intact, she finally got relieved. Long Houchen simply explained what happened during his trip. Yang Haohan could not help but become overjoyed. It could be said that Long Houchen was extremely successful for what he did. He was not only recognized by the Eternal Heroes and they agreed to fight, but also the Eternal Heroes were willing to teach the younger generations. Long Houchen did not know the profession of these Eternal Heroes, but Yang Haohan knew it very well. Out of all the 63 Eternal Heroes, 1/3 were knights. As for the 8 or more ranks, although it was difficult to find strong people under the age of 40 in the Night Temple, the head of the 6 temples could still be scraped together. The Light Dawn Demon Hunter group alone had 5 knights, and plus Lin Xin and their young generation of excellent knights, there was no problem in inheriting the unique learning of these eternal heroes. The other 5 temples were also linked together, so all was well. Young Haohan left Long Haochen to wait at the Night Temple as he returned to Yulongguan as fast as he could, and in less than half a day, brand new clothes and cloaks were delivered to here. Clothes were all made of fine silk, not only tough, but also warm in winter and cool in summer. It was especially good for keeping the body warm. It was the same with the cloaks. There was this thin gold wire rolling edge on the clothes and cloaks. It was not obvious in the room, but when the sun shone, it would emit a touch of golden light with a kind of low-key sense of luxury. Long Haochen brought these clothes and cloaks into the cave again and distributed them among the eternal heroes. All 63 strong men followed him and left the cave through 4 times of transmission. Standing at the core of the night's holy mountain, all the eternal heroes fell into silence, feeling the rich elements of light which made them uncomfortable, and their mood changed even more violently. After thousands of years of deep sleep, they finally wanted to leave, and this time, they probably would never be able to return. Their minds had been precipitated for thousands of years. It was impossible to say that there was no change at all. Xiaohua told Long Haochen that it would take some time for them to adapt to the external air and element fluctuations, and decided to stay in the Night's Holy Mountain for 3 days, and then go to Yulongguan to meet Long Haochen. The army of the Devil's Clan might be deployed at any time. Long Haochen, as the president of the Federation, couldn't wait here all the time. The great plan of how to fight the Devil's Clan had not been decided yet. He must immediately return to Yulongguan to discuss countermeasures. Xiao Lao. You see, we can't predict where the devils will attack. If the devils concentrate on attacking at one point this time, it is not only difficult for us to resist, but also difficult to predict the location of the devils. I have to get back as soon as possible, but the devils have deployed all their strength this time. Our spies in the Devil Clan have been wiped out on a large scale, and the news that can be sent back is very limited. At the request of Xiaohua, Long Haochen no longer called him ancestor, but Xiao Lao instead. After listening to Long Haochen's words, Xiaohua meditated for a moment and said, "The problem you are talking about is indeed very serious. If you do not prepare in advance, it is impossible to stop any fortress in the Union in the face of an army of more than 50 devil led by the devil gods. However, I think your thoughts strayed." Long Haochen looked at Xiaohua with a surprised look and said, "Please instruct me." Although Xiaohua had been sleeping for thousands of years, he was the first Night Temple Master after all. At the most critical moment when mankind was facing the threat of Devil's Clan, he and several other Temple Masters were able to form a temple alliance to compete with the Devil's Clan, and finally saved the last place for human existence, which showed how magnificent he was at that time. In terms of war experience, even 10 Long Haochen couldn't be compared with him. Xiaohua said, "You misunderstood the word of defense. If you change your way of thinking, you may be able to enlighten yourself. Yes, by defense only, it is difficult for us to stop the attack of the devils. Because even if we know the movements of the devils, but other army is still alive, what if they suddenly change the course of attack? Or suddenly split up? How do we defend ourselves? There can only be strenuous movements within the Federation. In this case, the war has not yet begun, we have fully entered the rhythm of the Devil's Clan, it can be said that we lost to them by half before the war. Do you know why the devils have never attacked us with all their strength before?" After a pause, Xiaohua said coldly, "That's because the devils don't want to destroy us all. At that time, if the Devil's Clan really want to destroy us, even if we set up the Temple Alliance and gather all the strength of mankind, we will not be able to compete with the Devil's Clan at all. In the end, the most important thing for us to survive is not that we are strong enough, but that the Devil's Clan did not intend to eliminate us. In fact, the Devil's Clan does not dare to completely eliminate us from this world, or even does not want to completely rule us. To find out the reason, we need to find out the nature of the Devil's Clan." Long Haochen listened carefully to Xiaohua. This ancestor completely experienced everything when the Devil's Clan first came to the Holy Demon Land, and he personally fought with the Devil's Clan's army. His experience was very precious for Long Haochen. The space is broken and the 72 devil pillars arrived in this world. They brought us the terrifying plague to the Holy Land. At that time, mankind had just ended the war with the scourge of the undead, Electrolux, for more than 200 years. It was because of the horrors of the undead that there are already more than 1/4 of the undead on the mainland, and we are gradually eliminating them and gradually unifying the mainland. At that time, the vitality of mankind was not only far from being restored, but at the same time, the two countries were busy fighting for territory. The arrival of the 72 devil pillars of the Devil's Clan is only within one country and does not involve another country. At that time, the power of the splendid Vatican had been weakened to a very low level because it was hit by the scourge of the undead, Electrolux. As a result, there is no unified voice within the whole continent. Here we have to talk about the disaster that Electrolux has brought to mankind. He completely destroyed one of the three empires, weakened one, and almost destroyed the splendor of the Vatican. This gives the devil a chance. 72 devil pillars have fallen in that almost intact country, and although they have also been affected by the scourge of the undead, their strength is relatively intact. At that time, the stronger country was aggressively waging war against the crippled country, trying to invade it and unify the whole continent. When the 72 devil pillars first came, they were even considered by the weaker country to be blessed by heaven. It is conceivable that how could these two empires work together? Even the big country with the devil pillars failed to take the existence of the pillar seriously at the beginning. It was not until the plague spread at an astonishing speed that it turned all races into devils, and began to attack and occupy cities, showing the horrors of 72 devil pillars. But by then it was too late. In addition, the weak country took advantage of this opportunity to launch a counter-offensive in an all-round way. It can be said that human beings themselves destroyed themselves, and under the internal and external attacks, they destroyed the most powerful empire of mankind at that time. By the time the weaker country discovered the horror of the Devil's Clan, it was already too late. The Devil's Clan had become bigger and not only occupied the whole area of the big country, but also began to launch a strong attack on the small country. Even after thousands of years have passed, Xiaohua said with a sad look, and at such a critical moment, there are still differences among small countries. They were divided into two factions, blaming each other, which led to the division of the country at a critical moment. Under the attack of the devils, the country gradually collapsed and perished. At this time, one of them was alert and began to summon the remaining strong men of mankind to unite with the outside world, break away from the concept of the state, avoid the impact of the desire for power on mankind, and form 6 temples to compete with the devils. There are 2 reasons why the Devil's Clan finally let the human race go. First of all, the plague caused by the 72 devil pillars did not last for long, so that it did not continue to infect more races into devils. As a result, the total strength of the Devil's Clan was limited to a certain extent. It also made the god of devils realize that if he continued to fight, the number of devils would only continue to plummet. Another reason is that the Devil's Clan had not launched an all-out attack on us for more than 6,000 years, which is because the Devil's Clan itself is unable to make any products. Almost every race of the Devil's Clan is a born warrior, born with a strong fighting capacity. However, they are not good at producing food and making utensils. This determines that they may have the upper hand in the war in a short period of time, but once the war is over and mankind is really completely destroyed, the demons will only gradually disappear from the Holy Land. The demons who will survive in the end will be only a small part and live a life of relying on the forces of nature to provide food. If you think about it, as a wise ruler, would the god of devils kill the goose that lays the golden eggs? They keep us alive, which is tantamount to keeping us in captivity. Then plunder us through small-scale wars, and even trade with us. At the same time, it is also self-development, looking for a way to survive on this continent. This is the fundamental reason why we human beings can still survive. Fortunately, for 6,000 years, the devils have never been able to find the possibility that they can survive on their own. That's why we haven't been wiped out. Otherwise, do you think the devils will be so kind? Xiaohua's words were like an open door for Long Haochen. It made him realize a lot of fundamental things. No wonder the devils even launched holy war in that way of full-scale attack, consuming their own and human population and strength at the same time. In the end, it ended the war briefly. They never intended to destroy mankind completely. The Devil's Clan is about to launch an all-out battle, mainly aiming at you. Because you have the power to destroy the Devil Pillars, thus causing the panic to the Devil's Clan. What they fear most is being shaken. The 2 pillars are not many, but that is a very bad start. Otherwise, the god of devils would not have insisted on killing you. However, I am sure that even if the devils successfully enter the Union, they will not try their best to destroy the living space within the Union. And even eventually withdraw. Of course, a big looting is inevitable. It's like the wheat that has been raised is about to be harvested. Xiaohua's analysis could be said to be thorough, and if Long Haochen had not clearly known that he had been sleeping in the cave, he would have been regarded as the wisest elder of the Temple Alliance. At this point, Xiaohua paused for a moment, a golden light flashed in his eyes, and said in a deep voice, "We must avoid this disaster. Once our human vitality is seriously damaged again, then the accumulation of thousands of years will be wiped out. This will only repeat the process of being kept in captivity again. It may never be turned around. So, in any case, we can't let the devils invade the Union. As I said just now, there is something wrong with your way of thinking, which lies in the word defense. If you think about it on the other hand, if it is not defense, but offense, how will we face the demons? Offense? Long Houchen only felt as if the bottleneck in his heart had been pierced through by a sharp arrow, and the inspiration appeared instantly. Although it was still a little vague, he understood something serious. Xiao Hua nodded and said, "That's right. It is to attack. Just a simple passive defense, of course, we will suffer a great loss, the Devil's clan can need us as much as they want. However, if we put the battlefield in the territory of the Devils and fight in their provinces, even break up into parts, at the same time from several directions to take the lead in launching a holy war against the Devil's clan, how do you think the God of Devils will deal with it? Will he dare to ignore us? Absolutely not. What he fears most is that we shake their roots. At that time, they will not lead us by the nose, but we will restrain them in turn. Is it possible that only the Devils can destroy it? Don't Devils always deploy heavy troops near our 6 fortresses? Then we will operate on these garrison troops of the Devils. Let's see who is more ruthless than the other." On one side, Yang Haohan hesitated. "But can we defeat the Devils on the front battlefield? For a long time, we have been relying on the defense of the fortress to resist the attack of the Devil." Xiao Hua snorted and said, "It has been 6,000 years, but your way of thinking is still so conserved. When the God of Devils leads the anti-heavenly dragon clan to come, what is the use of the fortress's defense? In the face of the real strong, the fortress can only become a cage that limits us to give full play of our strength. What's more, I never said I wanted to have a head-on encounter with the Devil." "I see. Thank you, Xiao Lao." Long Houchen's eyes sparkled, and he fully understood what Xiao Hua meant. Since war was inevitable, the first thing to do was to seize the initiative. Those who were more proactive will face fewer problems on the battlefield and would be more likely to get opportunities. By pure defense towards irresistible force, the final outcome could only be a tragedy. The most serious problem that had been troubling him finally had a solution, which made Long Houchen feel overjoyed. He immediately set off to return to Yulongguan. He wanted to talk about Lao Xiao's idea in the parliament. If everyone thought that it was feasible, then it was necessary to take action immediately. The preparation time for the Holy War was never long, and even if one had to go all out, it should not take more than a month. Kia did not follow Long Houchen to return to Yulongguan. She transferred her voting rights as vice-chairman directly to Long Houchen. It was not that she didn't want to go, it was Xu Yongxiao who wouldn't let her go. After seeing Kia, Xu Yongxiao liked her very much. As undead creatures, the eternal heroes were afraid of the purification aura of Kia. However, according to Xu Yongxiao, Kia's talent was no worse than that of Long Houchen. Perhaps in terms of innate spiritual power, Kia was not as good as Long Houchen, but as a reincarnation saint, she was the best assassin. At the same time, Kia began to practice from an early age, and her foundation was more solid than that of Long Houchen. Therefore, Xu Yongxiao made her stay and couldn't wait to pass on her skills to Kia. What made Long Houchen laugh so much was that Xu Yongxiao, an ancestor who had lived for more than 6,000 years, insisted on letting Kia call her sister Xu. Long Houchen did not dare to calculate the gap between their generations. Different from Long Houchen's idea, Yang Haohan was in a good mood. Long Houchen, Kia and Eternal Heroes got along well, and the strength of these more than 60 super strong men could also be said to have become a solid backing of the Temple Federation. They now had a better chance to win the Holy War. Back at Yulongguan, without a moment's rest, Long Houchen immediately summoned all the members of the parliament to hold a meeting and told them Xiao Hua's proposal. Xiao's suggestion is like opening a window for me to see the hope that we can completely defeat the Devils in this holy war. In fact, we have been using similar tactics against the Devils, that is, the hunter groups. It's just that the size of the hunter group is too small, and the overall strength is negligible compared with the behemoth of the Devil's clan. Since the God of Devils wants to lead a large army to come, it is meaningless for us to hold on to the fortress, so I fully agree with what Xiao said. We must launch a counteroffensive before the arrival of the God of Devils and spread the flames of war to the territory of the Devils. Li Jingxi nodded and said, "This suggestion is too timely." "I agree. Turning passivity into initiative not only allows us to seize the opportunity, but also forces the God of Devils to be led by us by the nose. At that time, even if we are defeated in the frontal battlefield, we can withdraw to the fortress to fight against the devils. Then we can predict the main forces of the devils' attacks. Long Qianyin nodded and said, I agree. The god of devils must not have thought that we would dare to take the initiative to attack. I've been waiting for a counterattack for too long. Let's have a big fight. The Devil's Clan does pose a great threat to us this time, but if we can defeat the main force of the Devil's Clan, it will also be a battle to break the Dark Age and turn things around. After his fight with Long Qianyin at the meeting last time, Long Haochen thoroughly established his authority as the president of the Federation. After that meeting, Long Qianyin was silent for several meetings and gradually returned to normal. A discerning man like Li Xingxi immediately understood the play performed by the two grandfather and grandchildren, but there was nothing they could do about it. Anyway, Long Haochen's authority had been established. And the Knight Temple that already had 6 sealed divine knights, its status would never be shaken because of Long Qianyin being reprimanded once. As a result, the Knight Temple was still the biggest winner of the Union. Although Li Xingxi had always been somewhat unconvinced, people cannot beat over the circumstance, not to mention the coming army of devils. Everyone now shared a common hatred of the enemy. No one could spare a moment to argue for power and profit. Not everyone supported the proposal to take the initiative to attack, and the priest temple raised an objection. Several congressmen from the warrior temple also objected the proposal. The fairness and authority of the parliament were shown in the final vote. The powerful influence from the Light Dawn Demon Hunter group couldn't be changed by a few congressmen's words. As a result of the vote, more than 2/3 of congressmen supported the strategic resolution, and the historic battle between the Temple Federation and the Devil was finally about to begin. Now the decision was made, then it came to the details of strategy and tactics. After the discussion, it was finally decided to launch an active attack on the Devil's Clan by point attack and area attack. The 6 temples quickly began to mobilize and integrate the strength of the 6 temple professionals. Each temple was divided into 5 routes heading towards the other 5 temples, thus formed a full professional combination of the 6 temples. After the occupation of each fortress was completed, it was commanded by the temple where it was located. There was no time left for ice-breaking activities. After the completion of professional integration, the 6 temples would immediately launch an attack on the Devil's army stationed outside the garrison. Thus, announced the full launch of this holy war. They would take the initiative to burn the flames of the war within the Devil's Clan. The god of devils summoned 54 demon gods to gather at the demon capital for a meeting, which had both advantages and disadvantages. At least in the army at the garrison outside the 6 major fortresses, there would be no demon gods for the time being. The Devil's Clan obviously never thought about the problem that humans would counterattack. In the full-scale holy war launched at the same time, there was also a little breakthrough, but also a real check on the main force of the Devil's Clan. The army responsible for the breakthrough was the 1st and 2nd Legions of the Union, which had been integrated. And Long Haochen would lead the Light Dawn Demon Hunter group to personally lead this team. At the same time, the Union also assigned all the returning hunter groups to this army under the commander of Long Haochen. Their goal was to go deep into the Devil's Clan like a sharp knife and give the Devil's Clan a heavy blow. Of course, the war launched by this army was by no means blind. First of all, they would avoid going in the direction of Modu as much as possible. At the same time, while the Light Dawn Demon Hunter group would all accompany the army, 18 of the 63 Eternal Heroes would also follow and fight. Among them were Xiaohua and Xu Yongxiao, and the remaining 16 were the 16 super strong men who had been promoted above level 9 of rank 5. The strength of such an army had even exceeded the overall strength of the anti-heavenly dragon clan. Moreover, if it was said to be inside the enemy, it would certainly not go too far. The army was flexible and had the ability to withdraw at any time. With their destructive power, they would certainly be able to contain the main force of the magic clan of the commander-in-chief of the God of Devils to a great extent. The God of Devils would dare not let Long Haochen lead an army like this to destroy within the Devil's Clan. What's more, his real goal was Long Haochen. In addition to the 18 Eternal Heroes who followed Long Haochen, the remaining 45 Eternal Heroes were divided into 5 groups and went to the Assassin Temple, the Magic Temple, the Warrior Temple, the Temple of Souls and the Priest Temple. The Knight Temple had no Eternal Heroes to assist in the battle, because the Sharp Knives army commanded by Long Haochen would launch an offensive attack from Yulongguan. At the same time, Yulongguan would be chosen in the final retreat. They had enough strength. As for the simultaneous attack of the other 5 temples, there was only one purpose, and that was to force the God of Devils to divide his army. It was so that he couldn't take all the main forces with him, so as to reduce the pressure on Long Haochen's side. As long as the position of the main force of the God of Devil was finally determined, then there would be follow-up measures on the side of the Temple Federation. The devils had come with all their strength, and the Temple Federation did not have any reservations as well. Some hidden forces and treasures that could be used in the war were all ready to be invested in this war. The plan was settled, and then there was a rapid integration. If one could overlook the entire Temple Federal frontier from high above, there would be signs of significant army movements throughout the frontier. Each temple was divided into 5 routes to other temples. As for the operational orders and the real purpose, they were kept in strict secrecy. It was at a time when the 6 temples were still transferring professionals to each other. Long Houchen and an army of sharp knives had taken advantage of the night out of the Yulongguan, just like a tiger out of the sluice, and pounced on the devil's defenders located 100 miles away. This video will end here.